they will end with something like Vercel.app application. So this, this one is pixie.vercel.app. So when you go to Netlify, Netlify will give domain, but for them the domain will end with netlify.app. If I'm not wrong. With their social accounts, yes, you can log in with GitHub or Bitbucket. So yes. For now, you should choose personal projects so that you can get those free parts from their site. So, yeah. So you can choose to go commercial when you are ready to host a commercial project that you're willing to pay for. So they have packages that start from around $20 per month. But now that would mean you are hosting an app that you have people who are paying for that service. So it's to cater for its bills. So they also give you freedom to log in with your social accounts. Yes, so it's a free domain that so the easiest way to get your application to either Vercel or Netlify is by GitHub or GitLab, and we also have another Git provider that is called Git. I think it's GitHub, not GitHub, Bitbucket. Yes. So our example, I'm assuming everyone has a GitHub project, maybe from last week's chat application. Yeah. Okay. So because you need to use that GitHub project for us to how you can get that application online for demos. So I will I will first give you context to the advantages of using of being able to use either Netlify or Vercel. And the first one is this one. So this this is a demo website for one of the products at Pixel Africa. And so there are two approaches. So if you are a freelancer or you have maybe your own software and web building agency, let's say you have self-employed yourself and you have backed a customer, you have a website or a web application, um, you'll be able to use Vercel or Netlify to share a demo with them of what you're building. So you'll simply share this maybe whatever you're building, Vercel.app with your customer, and they will be able to create how it will look in real life on a website as a website and give you feedback. Okay, so that is the one use case that you can use Vercel for free or Netlify. So you can also host demos that you can use as a portfolio to convince a client to give you a contract or a job. So you can build demo web applications that are production grade, applications that are actually ready to be used, but on as a demo application that if you are looking for a job or for a contract to build a website for someone, you can share as many links as possible. I don't know how many websites you can do, but they are actually a lot for free. So you can have a very huge portfolio of which you can be able to show your client what you can do. So the reason I'm giving that context is because I personally have created demo websites that are not actually for use or are not actually being used by anyone. And I have used those demos to convince to show clients what I can do and gotten jobs from that. So this this one is the website for a client that I created. I believe 20, 2024 or 2025, I'm not sure. So this for me, it doesn't matter if you are employed, you are not employed, but you can have your own client handle, okay? So if you meet someone, they want a website, they want a web application, you can build them, either make it your real-time job, your full-time job, or as a side hustle if you are employed somewhere else. So I showed some demos to this they gave me the job, and when I was building the website, I did the work, they posted that for them on their real domain. Okay, so you can also purpose to keep a portfolio of such kind of work that you have done for your client. So, for instance, if you build a website for a client and then they go out of business, it means they might close that website, right? So in the future, you cannot be able to show other clients uh, that website because the owner maybe disposed it or they closed down their business. So that means your portfolio is going to shrink and you will not have a lot of real work to show. So you can also use Vercel or Netlify to keep a copy of your client's work for purposes of building a portfolio. So you can be able to show other clients in the future. So the more you have on your portfolio, the much likely you are it's possible for you to get a job. Okay. Yes. So those are some of that is one use case for yourself and Netlify, building a portfolio for yourself and also a place that you can be able to host and share work in progress with your client. All right. Um, one advantage, one advantage of this kind of portfolio, so you have a collection, whether you built it for a client or it was your own site or demo project, it's because there are not jobs that you're going to get that will not care about your qualifications. They will not ask you for a certificate. They will not ask you for the years of experience you have. They will not. The only thing they want from you is, can you do it, and can you show something that you have already done to prove that you are capable. Okay, so that one is very useful. Yeah. So you can. I hope everyone who is going to take the web applications line of work, they are going to create for themselves a portfolio for that. For unfortunately, for mobile development, you can host your application somewhere as an APK, but that is going to be, some people will refuse to download APKs from just anywhere. But for web, it's very easy for you to get a portfolio. So that is one use case. So the other use case that you can have is I'll show that by example. Is that you can decide to create your own personal brand or website that you can now actually be able to compile your links to other projects that you have on either Vercel or Netlify for people to find it easily. So we wait for that to load. I don't know if that still works. Maybe it stopped working, but I don't know. So I'll also give another example. What? So we have Rick and Morty for those who love cartoons. So I was explaining the thought of this project. So the reason I have this project on my Vercel, it's the next main advantage of using Vercel and Netlify. So what happened in this case is I saw uh, a job offer posted somewhere. Someone was looking for a developer who can work with React, React.js, and that was Postgre or Firebase. I can't remember. So the hiring process for that company and many other companies was yes, you're going to submit an application letter, you're going to submit your CV, and you might also ask for certificates, and then they will sort them out and maybe pick like 10 or 5 people that they think might be qualified for the job they are offering. So the next step to filter out with the 5 people or the 10 people, you'll be given a take-home assignment. So for them, it doesn't matter if you are going to do it with AI, you are going to copy someone's code, but the take-home assignment requires you to go. They will give you a topic. So in this case, we were taught to create a dashboard that has a collection of all Greek and Latin characters. So again, the founder of that company. So at the advantage is we are going to, for this case, they shared an open API that provides all these statuses. So the assignment required you to create a dashboard that lists the characters of Rick and Morty with an image, a name, and data of alive or dead. And then they wanted you to filter those characters by location. So on the left side, you can see I have locations where we have Earth, which is a planet. We have two other of Rick, which is a space station, interdimensional that those are locations that are common. So you could be able to click on maybe Earth and filter out to see how many characters we have in that location at every given time. And you can see the data to that and maybe the dead. They also wanted you to create a way for you to be able to see now full details of a character. So you could click on a character and see the details. So for the employer, they are going, oh yeah, so you could submit some notes. Some notes. Yes. So when you get to such a situation where you you apply for a job and this is the kind of uh, test they give you, what they are looking for is how professional you can make an application look. So there are those who are going to an application to make it work. They are going to figure out. So they want to keep it with something that something that can be able to use it. So they will tell you to create that app and maybe share a link of what you have created. So they want to link, they will want a quoted version of what you have created, and they want GitHub link so that they can see your code on GitHub. So if that code is AI generated, you want to make sure that you don't implicate yourself. So what AI does is AI will write some very obvious comments in your code that will make it very obvious that that was AI, right? So if you're going to generate that project using AI, make sure you go through your code and remove or replace AI comments with your own that sound human. And uh, even do this, go and make very stupid spelling mistakes in those comments. That will make someone going through that code see that this guy, they'll think you are very tired working on that project at night. That's why you misspell words like fair or fair. Simple words. Yes. Make it because AI is perfect. To write very perfect comment. So that will implicate you. So they will put out, if they think this was AI generated, they are going to come to that application and proceed with the others. They will also uh, make sure to look at the quality of that application. So for web application, you just need to browse the web. Maybe look at Gmail, how Gmail looks like. Open Vercel, see how their dashboard looks like. So and keep in mind that all your employer or your contractor will want a product of that class. So that's why we are also doing, that's why you also need to look at for web and React and maybe others. Make sure to look at what do you call it? CSS component libraries. Don't don't write your own CSS from scratch. Uh, I don't know if Bootstrap still exists. There's Bootstrap, but the current two major component library UI frameworks that you can use. One is Tailwind CSS. The other one is Material UI by Google. And on top of those, people have created now component libraries. Those are variables, I think, design CSS libraries. So new components in this case, Tailwind CSS have their own uh, UI components that you can explore, and we have others. So many. So I will share a list of yes, yes. Not advisable to use inline CSS because that might make your code untidy or so so much. Preferable you will write CSS somewhere outside. So the main reason is for reusability. If you want to use that design on another page, you don't have to copy again and go paste it inline. You just want to reference it. So you can use it as many times as possible. That also helps you come up with a uniform UI. Because when you do inline CSS, it's easy for you to have a button on home page with a padding of maybe 4 pixels and accidentally have a padding of 6 pixels of buttons on the about page. Because maybe your mind is, you thought you are using 6, but you actually have used 4. So importing CSS is the best practice for CSS. Yes. So Tailwind so Tailwind is a CSS framework. This is a framework, but now people have built what we call components around this framework. So even Tailwind have their own component library. I don't know where it is, but you'll find it somewhere. I don't know if it's in the documents. Yeah, yeah. So what components do, you end up not writing any CSS at all. So you actually don't write CSS. So we have a button component that is already designed for you around and maybe change anything you want, the width, the height, the dimension, the border radiuses, font size, the color, anything. But now you'll be calling that component wherever you put a button. You will not be creating a creating complicated view. Okay? Just call button everywhere. Just buttons. So you saving system, we have components for pure HTML, we have components for React. At this age, it would also be it would be a huge waste of time for you to try and write PSS because you could use that time to concentrate on the logic of your application. Leave this framework to do the work for you. So these are what they call components. I want to go through the simple components like that. This, this page actually has application UI. So for example, if you want to create a dashboard, like let's see, Rick and Morty, and you want to have this that sidebar for navigation, you are going to write that CSS, going to be too much. Then you have this over, it's going to be too much using CSS and maybe JavaScript to operate the opening and closing functions. But with Tailwind, they have sidebar layout components, and you can just copy that component into your application. Okay, so the side of the dashboard and all that. So um, I believe they sell their component, so you have to have that. Leave them alone. You have a lot of free that use a lot of training. All these are components that will be uh, along work that we see where we have an icon, title, description, we have by everybody that not depending page. We just copy the code for the basic. But in the case of this UI component, there is something like React, you don't actually copy any code. You install it as a package in your project, and then now you can do something like import button, zero UI, and use that component. They give you in the implementation, you find a way for you to customize the so okay. So in case you get yourself they have to if it passed on not this one. There was another job that was found somewhere. they needed a mobile application, and their interview process actually did not involve any CV. They just wanted a link to your GitHub and a list of mobile applications that you maybe created and published. Or if you don't have to, just submit your GitHub so that they can see your public project and your activity on GitHub. And then they asked us to create a mobile application for, I think, the user was supposed to log in and put some fraud with it. So the reason I failed on that one is because someone created a better UI than me, and they were fair enough to tell me that your UI was too big. Just part of it, just basic. And from that point onwards, I realized that whenever you get to hiring process that want you to create something for them to see what you can do, put in your best work in there. We don't just want to see if it is working. We want to see how it looks. It is something that will attract their client. Okay. So for mobile development, you have to open up the first, maybe the Gmail, just all those really professional applications that you know you have on your phone, and try to come up with a UI that is clean and attractive and that. So those are the two use cases. So one, you can host your demo work there for your own portfolio and to share with your clients. Two, you can host a take home project. Yes, yes. You can if you are online, you can try and browse from is just type pick dash or mine app. So that application is available on the internet to everyone who has an internet connection. So you can also post an actual product here. The branding is very important when it comes to you publishing applications that you want people to pay for. If you want someone to pay for your application, branding is very important. But I reckon for a new application that is starting up and maybe you are approaching your first customers on a one-to-one basis and trying to get them maybe to test out your application before they can actually pay for it. If you don't have money to buy a domain, you can still post it on Vercel and get them to use it on the Vercel or Netlify free domain. And for some people, not for some people, for say you know in this room, if you are into software development, which you go online and to product that is being sold. Maybe they even have subscription and they are using it on the app, Netflix.app. So you're not going to track that app, okay? Because that this is meant for demo or portfolio purposes. For example, I think I have another demo project in progress. I don't know where it is. Netlify. This being a project for clients, and we have a Netlify domain, and then they a set of so they want they want people to sign up and pay for their services. There are people who are going to care about the Netlify.app. It is because they don't know what this will not do it because the payment part is not billed. But for example, and we have a Vercel.app and Netlify.app. You want people to buy anything from that website, you are going to you are going to get a huge number of people who are going to run away because they think this is a option. Okay, so the trust the the trust issues with commercial applications. So these domains are good for testing, for portfolios, for you to showcase your work. But if you are building a product and you want people to pay for it, just make sure you buy a domain. That will make it sound more legit. Yes. And when you buy a domain, you still can come to your Netlify or your Vercel and add the domain that you have bought. You can add it to your project. So how to do that is link. Um, this is Vercel. Vercel will give you a list for this in either package. You can buy that domain, or you have bought it from somewhere else. Add it here. They give you steps of how you are going to verify that that is your domain for it to be able to be accepted there. So, and I can confirm that I have worked on several projects where I didn't have to show my certificate. I didn't even have to send a CV. Because the hiring team just sent an email with a link to your GitHub and a couple of links of projects that you have worked on. And I think so. Yeah. In one case, they asked us to create a mobile application. So that company was working with a framework called Flutter. So for those who will to take the mobile applications line of work, we are going to find time on this workshop, not today, another day. We are going to look at Flutter and how to build both mobile and web applications with Flutter. So they asked us to create a mobile application with Flutter, share the GitHub repository for that code, and build an APK, send it to them for them to install on their phone, go through it, and check it fits. So after being taught a very serious lesson on my first experience, I went down to think something that was professional enough for them to hire me. So you get used to those. I will share I will compile a list of websites and places where you can find those kind of jobs. If you are lucky enough and you build a formidable portfolio, you stand a chance of getting those kind of just by showcasing your work. So GitHub and being able to work with platforms like Vercel, Netlify, and Firebase, because Firebase will give you free backend services. Because hosting a backend application now, that one will cost you because you have to pay for a server. If you go the Firebase, so sometimes someone asked if it's maybe Firebase or Postgre on an application. So you might have an application that you intend to build using something like MySQL or Postgre, but for demo purposes, you decide to use Firebase because you can be able to spin up what we call a prototype in a day or two. And if your prototype is approved, now you can go sit down and now start the whole infrastructure of Postgres, maybe PHP, Node.js, and the rest. So yeah, if everyone has a Vercel account, I would do this demo with Vercel. The workflow is the same for Netlify. So maybe if we have time, we'll also try to do it on Netlify, but the process is similar. So has anyone posted anything on Vercel or Netlify successfully? You have? Anybody else? Yes? Okay. So it is a very straightforward process. There's the add new, but on your dashboard there you get the add new buttons. So the add new button will ask you for security. You can add a project and a main. So those are for storage. If your application has uploads from applications and team membership. Team membership is for paid accounts. So in our case, we need to add a new project and you get such kind of a page. So Vercel are quite generous because we have a lot of templates that continue working on them. They are in software engineering, there are some boilerplates that you work on every project that you work on. The first thing is authentication. So you will find that every project you go to work on, you need to create a sign-up page, a login page, a user profile page, and you need to manage authentication. That is knowing if a user is logged in and who it is and all that. So templates are not good for taking care of that. Honestly, it gets to a point where you do it so many times when you're creating your own template when you start all your project. Because when you start repeating those projects, it becomes quite tiresome. So you are going to import a Git repository. So this is what we have talked about GitHub. So that is what we need to using. You are free to do and GitHub and which bucket. I don't know which bucket have been, but GitLab you can use for free. GitHub you can use for free. So you click on the GitHub button. That will ask you to authenticate your GitHub account. I would encourage those who are those who will appreciate, or those who are working with something like React and Vue.js, I would encourage you to have as many projects as possible. And when you get there, you just go and work on that project. Just go and add something new after some time. That keeps your GitHub active. I don't know if uh, awesome. So I'll open the browser there and I don't want the password. Those who don't have a LinkedIn account, you can go and create a LinkedIn account. During the LinkedIn, we always have a lot of job postings. I believe all those examples I've given, I found them on LinkedIn. So you just find a company, or some of those people hiring other people are just maybe someone like you. You have gone out there, you have become a freelancer, you have created stuff for a couple of clients, they pay you well, and now you get a lot of work and you need to hire someone, maybe as a part-time. So there are so many jobs that you can get on LinkedIn as a software developer. But now you before trying to look for those jobs, you need to first create a portfolio showcasing what you can do. And you also need to show some activity on GitHub. I remember so github.com. Yes. So GitHub is the purpose of GitHub is main purpose is very important to what I mean is if you share your project on GitHub, on Vercel, if it's a React application, or this is the- but you are going to support it. That's why that's why I had a team will ask you for maybe a link to that open version and a link to GitHub. And then they can maybe go through the code and see it is legit. Then you so for you to detect AI related code, it's very easy. Sometimes AI will create what it does, it creates very comment code. Like a code. Yeah, so that's what I was saying that you can go and create the code, right? Hit them or replace them with small, just small comment and make it even more legit, drawing and spelling mistake in those elements. Utakaa binadamu. And this person was tired when writing in code. So that's why he was making mistakes. So although the code itself, you cannot really tell if a human was doing it. Or only very, very good comment. The reason those hiring team to ask you for your link, maybe not a specific project. We just want to see GitHub portfolio. It's because of this one are Netflix. They are looking for is this is what they are looking for. So this shows how active you are. So for example, this novel, it's a detail. This shows that in detail work on this thing. But the more activity shows that you are on time. Okay, so the primary can be we have contribution. So when it when nothing, so that contribute the more primary means more contribution to okay. So imagine you are get a hand in team, they want the hand and develop. They ask you to make it, and then we are in May. Uh, from May all the way to maybe October, it's black. That means you better than 5 months you will have that. And sometimes, uh, like for example, this is the case of Thika where we don't use GitHub. Instead of GitHub, they use Azure DevOps for Microsoft. It's the same as GitHub, but it's for corporate. So in that case, if I don't work on any other item on my personal project, my GitHub will be left very empty, and I cannot show my Azure DevOps profile because that is so as much as it's my profile, it belongs to my employer. It's private to that employer. I cannot share it. So in that case, you need to keep yourself busy with some just simple, just make simple projects that you keep on pushing. So this okay, how many pushing forward to do. So today I decided to make my day bright green. And it would be one of the projects. Maybe just a comment and push that, and push that, and maybe push the 30 comments. you show green, very light green, those are made to, that's the meaning you um, a heat map. Those points critical. You might find probably community will push you to, and it doesn't matter. So what they look for mostly is that heat map. Okay. GitHub works this way. You are here. Last thing we set up to the main. So we can say that made 993 contribution in 12 months. So that is almost like 3 contributions daily, which is workable for most employers. Also have a collection of these. You can read the weekend challenge that I did is there. Let the needs of the you can create your personal project, make them public. So if you make a project private or with GitHub, it will not show up because this is that we are moving from. So me personally, I'm not going to be here. So this is what even if you yourself, if you decided you think to move in that way, you have the flow and she will do that again. You do all that. Be honest, having having a very active GitHub profile does not mean you are a good software developer. Okay, it's just something that hiring teams decided to use to actually do the coding, but it doesn't make you a good developer. But it is necessary for you to have to showcase your your work. I have, I hope you have all started testing that Vercel GitHub deployment. Have you? Eh? Mshaanza? Eh? Okay. So with it, you are using the add new approach, uh, take you to this page. For those, okay, for those who have already connected their GitHub to Vercel, you will see all your repositories that things are able to do is you get GitHub. You can actually add, you can add more GitHub account here. So you can host, you can even add more and more GitHub and add it. You can put provide a to GitHub or Bitbucket or any other GitHub account. I have Africa, I have my backend. The selected one is West Africa Limited. Yes, so you can add as many. So is anybody having an issue connecting their GitHub to Vercel? We are good. Okay. So to do is click on the button import. So you'll take to that page. So you import the repo you want to host. So what Vercel does is that Vercel is able to detect the technology you're using or the framework you're using or application, whether you React here or Next.js, to detect the framework you're using automatically. So it will be able to run all the necessary build commands on your behalf. So these are some of the hassles you are looking at. So writing the end command, the all commands and all those. So Vercel takes care of all those. So what you need to do is just click on the deploy button. Yes. And so Vercel will actually host a backend, but only if it is based on Node.js. Yes. So remember we talked about the advantages of using the so the backend that you can not host here is something like PHP, Java, or those other backend languages. But if your backend is in um, Node.js, you can host it here. Yeah. For example, the SQL nikiposti au so like that is the global so we have a large application na behind the scene tunatumia vitu so so fix the problem, push to GitHub, it will auto deploy. So what happens is Vercel offers a database, but now it's paid. So there are things that these people refuse to give out for free, like databases and all that. But if it's a Postgres database, you can host it host it for free on something like Superbase. Superbase.com. This will give you a free integrated database that you can connect to your React application or anything. So the link, you can do that link on your localhost. When you have your project in your localhost, you on Vercel, you need to log in. I'm logged in on Superbase. So what you need to do is you just need the connection credentials. See, you usually add a database host, which is localhost. You add a port, user, and a password. So in this case, we just need to come and get this from. You get the all those from Superbase. And the best thing for Postgre database, you can use project purpose. They have been inactive for quite long, so they are full. So you get the connection URL to your database from Superbase and add that to your database application. We might find another day to talk about Superbase and to use it because Superbase will give you the same services you get from Firebase. The only difference is that Firebase uses a document database, which is more like MongoDB, and Superbase uses a Postgre database. But you get all those other authentication SDK provided for you. You see that we created the login using Firebase. You can do exactly the same, but now for Superbase. And they even give you access to add login with Google, login with Facebook, login with all those things. Get the database, yes, both Firebase and Firebase. They are almost the same product, but you can tell Superbase is what came after Firebase because it's like they copied something. Instead of calling it Firebase, they call it Superbase. The only single difference between Firebase and Superbase is the database used on the backend. So Superbase is a Postgre database. Firebase is Firestore, and Firestore is like a mobile database. Those are the only two differences. And Superbase were frustrated by Firebase having to force you to use the document-based database. So they wanted all those services that Firebase gives you, but now with a Postgres database. Yes. And just like Firestore, not Firestore, just like Firebase, even Superbase gives you free use with a limit, but it's a generous limit. I have hosted an application with so many users on Firebase, on Superbase, on the free tier. And by the time we were deciding now to start paying for Superbase, it was not that because we could not continue using the free service, it's because now you expect growth. And you don't want that growth find you locked in a free tier. So that's preparing. But you can host a complete backend on Superbase. Like you can just they have so many services. You can just pick the database first. Just use their Postgres database and you go write your code elsewhere, maybe on Vercel or something. Yes. So who else has succeeded in deploying their uh, a, a GitHub repo to Vercel? You have? Ada. No, it will work. You just need to give it access. You Anybody else with tag? Okay. What you do is the very first time you deploy your application to Vercel, you have connected it to your GitHub repo. So from there, there's nothing else you need to do from your side unless it fails. So all you need to do is make it push to that repository. Vercel will auto deploy. So in a real world production environment, if you are working on an application that is really being used by users, you might push some changes to your GitHub. Maybe they are not properly tested. At the end, your live application on Vercel and cause some trouble with the users, right? So that's where branches and environment come in. That's that we have. On GitHub, you don't work on the other side. Even when you're working on your own personal project alone, practice having multiple branches and doing what we call merge pull requests. So you can deploy the same application on them, but I think I will show you to split it such that when you make a push to the main branch, that's when it goes to the production deployment. And then when you make a push to another branch, just in a branch you're working, Vercel will deploy uh, and create a link for you to see those changes before you merge them into the main branch. So you have multiple URLs of Vercel, each URL, one URL for the main branch, which is production. You can have another fixed branch like staging, which you use to send to your testing tool. So all softwares have a testing phase and an internal testing access. Maybe only users in that company have access to that link. So they can log in, test, see if everything is okay. If all is okay, they make a merge to the main branch, and now it goes to the new users out there. So you can have those fixed branches. And apart from that, any other branch you create, maybe fix bug AYZ, and you publish that branch to GitHub. Vercel will auto deploy, but it will not be production. Give you some kind of a link. I don't know if you have, but essentially, whenever you just push your code, it will auto deploy on. I don't know if I have a project that has much. Yes, want to see the deployment history of these projects. So on this here, you can see that um, so if for your person, you have those branches you are doing. The main branch that's deployed on the very it will be remote branch. Okay. So immediately you reach in the main branch, the branch will be so this link here, you can be my branch. My branch will give you the main name. And on this day, you reach to the branch for the day. One. So then you deploy anything for that people. If you have review, the main production. So even this one, so the only thing this review make the changes that I put to the one branch, I merge them, the new branch. If if you if anyone needs to be reminded or to be walked through the GitHub workflows again, you can just see and request for that. See you understand a merge request and how to do it. So that's how it is. So, so if you push changes to, if you are working on a project, you push those changes to any branch that you are working on. Vercel will give you a link to review the changes you have done. And how they do that is when you come to your domain area, you have one major domain that they give you. They give you the domain that you choose to use. But I believe on a deployment, they generate a random. Yes, they generate these random domains. You can see that sample give the one. So that URL will link to the branch that you just updated. And actually, this is another example of something I was made to build for me to get a job, and I actually got that job. It was a short-term contract, but for those asking, if you can tell, so if you can tell something was built with AI, then these are these are the ones. So you can imagine you as a developer writing emojis in code. Saying kazi ngumu. Sometimes you even have to go and maybe open your app, just open the keyboard so that you can type an emoji, copy it, and paste it to your code. So I'm telling you for these are the that I use for web development. Those are nothing part of me, but months are away of my yeah, especially if you have the tendency of using the liking, this like AI will generate a lot of that. So actually for if you want to use to add icons to your application, most of those UI components will let you install a preferred icon package with them, but there are so many that you can search for online. We have flat icon. You can search for those. We have huge icons. These ones are being used a lot these days. They're just free also. There is one we used to use sometimes ago. I'm forgetting its name. I believe Font Awesome. So this is another package that will give you so much of free icons that you can use on your apps. So yes, it's an npm package. So you just run npm install. I think they will give us that somewhere. Alafu you just import those packages like import import envelope from Fontosa. On this one, you find it calling itself like FA or something. So I'm looking for where you can find that command. So they have 64,000 icons, although not all of them are free. So you see they have Pro Plus and free. So you don't just go to the free tab so that you spot the icon you want it, and then when you click on it, it's supposed to be paid for. So you see they have 2,140 free icons. Huwezi maliza. So I think to add this to your React application, there is this tab here. If you select on that icon, so this is how that icon is added to a React application. Yes. Although yes. So font awesome icon is a React component. This is a React component. This is the icon. It is very easy for you to do. If you don't know the name of the item, so for computers, we always start with FA. So see the ignition is FA 500 PS. That's the name of that icon. But we have others like Vercel or Angle, right? I think FA Angle. So that's how you want to. If you are not aware of how to do that, you just search for npm front. So you just npm install front. We also have other icons that are gamma that are quite cool. So this is something I think that would also make a difference. You know, if you get a hiring team that has asked the applicants to create an app that you can share with them, there are very small things that might keep you in the game. Because if you end up all of you creating a very cool UI, now they don't know who to pick. Now they start looking for details. And icons make a great difference. This here drop down UI, it's easy for you to create that UI with just the names. It's just the names. Home page, downloads, and icon. But adding that icon might give you an extra point. All right. So the thing with this, with all these icon packages, so you need to do is not style. You need to find a filter for you to show you free icons on that. Yes. So you'll be sure that all icons you are seeing here, you can be able to use them. Because if you don't select the free option, you will see an icon and then code or paste it. That will not be possible. All things that can spice up your application. These kind of icons paired with the UI component, very like I would also like you guys to explore those who are interested. You can call shared CL, shared CL. Component framework. I have found it to be one of the best. You can give you. And besides that, they have blocks that they share for free, unlike Tailwind CSS components, not the framework. You know, the framework they give it free for free because SharkCN is built with Tailwind CSS. But now Tailwind CSS, because they are giving you Tailwind CSS for free, and they need to make some money, they sell the components. So that's will give you very cool. You can copy it, it's very easy. You just need to run this command implement. If you have added, so I want you, if you're interested, go and figure out how to install SharkCN on it. It's simple, just npm install or something. npm install SharkCN. You can select what you want to install it. If it's pure React, manual React, or you can use something like Vite. Next is okay. Then after that, the best thing of this is traditionally UI components or CSS like components libraries were bloating your code base. So you could install all their components, but probably you're just going to use a binding, right? So your code has so much in it that you're not using. The beauty, the beauty with ChanCN, you can actually install just a single component. If you just want to use a button, you just run this command of whatever you want to add. So you don't have to overload your code base with so much unused deadweight. So there's a catch with using React application, and you might go somewhere and you ask that question: How do you make how do you build up a React application? Because sometimes big React application tend to be slow. There's a time React, the history of React with who knows. If you know very well, React was built by faith. Okay, so they used React, they developed React for their own purposes, and that's when Facebook got that new look on its website. And then they saw it was so good, so they decided to share React with the world. So that's why it was created by Facebook. Material UI was created by Google and it's still managed by Google. So one way to make your React application faster or load faster is by reducing the amount of assets you need. Maybe icons, maybe CSS libraries and components. So traditional UI libraries would install all the components, cards, buttons, text fields, headers, everything. But probably you're just going to use a card, a text box, and a button. So the rest were not being used, but they are there. So ShadCN takes care of that at the installation stage because you just install whatever you need. Okay. And then you have those blocks that they give you. So you can just go and pick a block. If you want this whole dashboard, the way it looks like, you install by that command there. And you can actually copy the code if you don't want to install the command. So if you toggle here, preview and code, that's the it. You can copy the code or simplify by installing these commands. Yes, chance and because they have a even have login. If you instead of writing all that code you come up with that UI, you can install it from there. And they have others. That one. So in this case, you just need to download and the website of the website. They have this one that has the login but with Apple and Google buttons. We have that one, so you can copy whichever makes you feel okay. Then they have sidebars, signups, and those features. Their components are all there. Whichever you want, just need to run that ShadCN. We mostly, I believe, we are going to be using npm, so it is npx ShadCN latest add avatar. You get that specific component, and work becomes easier. I don't know if you has really struggled with CSS. write in manual CSS, you would know how annoying and tedious it is sometimes. And sometimes it might be too much work. So that's the beauty of those UI libraries. So has everyone managed to deploy that Vercel application? And I will take that as a yes, but if it's stuck, you can just add. All right. Question? Any question? But the questions are not necessarily based on what we have talked about. You can ask any question related to software engineering. Any question. Yes.
For example, maybe I can really like just assign you to GitHub. So then it's commercial, you have to pay for the domain stuff. So how can you recommend? What can you recommend? Where, for example, we should post the one that is maybe database, which one is better to post with? Maybe database. Yeah.
Um, the best explanation for that is you need first to figure out the type of website that you are talking about. So for a simple website, let's take for example a portfolio. It doesn't have to be personal, maybe a portfolio for a company, but they don't have any login or anything. It's just a website displaying what they do. That one, I think the best recommendation is build that with something like don't go to native React, use a framework, and that definitely is Next.js. Then host that on, uh, you can host that on Vercel for free, but buying a domain from something like Host Africa, Host Pinnacle, Kenya Web Experts. There are so many, Sasa Host. There are so many companies in Kenya that sell domains. So domains will range from 1,000 bob all the way to 5, 6,000, depending on the domain. So .co.ke and some of the cheapest domains. .eu.ke .com is above 1,000, but I don't know where. Then we have .africa, maybe something like Africa. That would go for those ones go, I think, all the way to 1,000, 2,000, I don't know, but depends. But sometimes the domain is not the suffix of the domain is not that serious because you can just take a .n, it will cost you maybe 1,000 or 1,500 per year. You be paying that amount every year, 1,500. Instead of going for something expensive like there are domains that go to even 6,000. Like if you try to buy a domain like KISE.io, I think I believe you might have encountered .io something. That domain is expensive, but it sounds prestigious. It sounds very techy. .io, it's expensive for that reason. So just get a .com or a .co.ke if you're not worried about international clients. Because what would happen is if someone is in the UK and they open a website that reads .co.ke, they would think that you only operate in Kenya because cu.ke is localized for Kenya. If you go to Uganda, that would be .co.ug. So if you're in Kenya, you browse a website that is .co.ug, you will not even continue because definitely those people are only serving Ugandans. That's what they are trying to communicate. So if you are not worried about that and you're just targeting Kenyans, .co.ke is very affordable. There is a .ke without the CO, like KISE.ke. It's expensive, but now it is more premium, but still localized for Kenya. .com is commercial. That one is universal. Yeah. I believe that the .com is commercial or something. So that one, when you are serving the whole world. The same case to .io, .app. If you put a .africa, it means you are locking the services to Africa. Someone in the UK or someone in Dubai or US, if they open a website that ends with .africa, they will not proceed, because in their mind they will record that this company are dealing with Africa. So .com is international, it's global. .com, .app, .io, .org. So the other thing that happens is that .org, that one represent an organization. So in most cases, people think this, it sounds like a non-profit organization, .org. If it's educational, you have .ac for academic. You also have .ac.ke, .ke.ac or something. You have those academic. Then there are those domains that you will not touch, that are something like .go.ke. Those are already reserved for the government. So .com is okay. And if you just want local.co.ke, we will do at a price of 1,000 bob per year. And maybe for the first year, they might give you that for 500 bob. Then from the next year, you start paying 1,000 annual. The other hosting path, if you're not going to host to Vercel, is wherever you buy your domain, maybe that is Sasa Host, or you're buying it from Host Africa or anything, they sell you a hosting package where they give you a server, as access to a server where you can upload your application. And that server is linked to the domain you buy. So you buy as two items, a domain and a server. So those servers, those subscriptions will go all the way to even, I think, tax in Kenya has really changed things. So these days, I think you can't get a hosting for 1,500 bob per year. We used to have those sometimes ago. You could buy a domain .co.ke for 500 bob and 1,500 for the hosting plan. So you end up paying 2,000 every year to get your website online. But now those hosting, they are called shared hosting. Shared hosting is okay for a small website that doesn't have so many users. We tried sometime and hosted an application that was very active. It was handling transactions, and people were making requests, very many requests, up to 100,000 requests per minute. And it would freeze. And so when we called the support for, I will not say the company, that company, we told us the only solution is to move that to a virtual private server. So a virtual private server is a bit more expensive and they pay monthly. So a virtual private server means you have been allocated a server that is yours alone. But those shared hostings, like the ones you get from those hosting companies, you are sharing the server, many of you. So sharing the server, it means you are sharing the processor, the RAM, the storage, shared across many users, you and other people who have hosted websites there. So yes, so for most clients, that shared hosting will work. Let's give a single example. Let's say it's a website for a land selling company. We are selling land somewhere in Matugu. You can use shared hosting for maybe You can browse this on things like hostafrica.com, host Pinnacle, Sasa Host, and so on. You will see the prices around 4,000 for hosting per year. What they do is they tell you for the first year to pay 4,000. You get hosting package and a free domain that is necessarily a .co.ke domain. So after 1 year, now the budget will increase because you got the domain for free for 1 year. So now you start paying 4,000 plus 1,200, that is around 50, 200 per year. Or you can buy a domain that you pay 1,500 for a year and host that thing for free on Vercel.
Buy it once and it's not yours.
No, a domain you rent it. Domains are rented. They're not. You don't actually own the domain. So they are rented out. So you will pay. But now for domains, you have to rent it for a whole year. So if 1 year ends and you decide you're not going to pay, they give you a grace period. I don't know of how many months. If you refuse to pay, it goes back to the market and someone else can buy the same domain. Yeah. So they are rented. It's the same case you do with the hosting space. It's rented. You are renting that server space. Yes. Is your question answered? So there are some serious applications. Let's say you have been hired by a microfinance, like let's say for example what start out Sacco. They want you to create now the whole maybe Sacco system, which is a web application, maybe with Laravel and MySQL. Now that one you can't host it on a shared hosting platform, and I cannot recommend you to host it on something like Vercel. You need to go and buy an actual private server for security reasons. So on something like Amazon Web Services, now that one be ready to be due annual, monthly. So you will be monthly, and most of those, some of them have a fixed. Like DigitalOcean, there are so many platforms for that. They'll tell you you get a server with 8 GB RAM, this amount of storage, and this kind of a processor, and you get it for $20 a month every month. So you have to pay every month. So you can go that way.
Now, that service, for example, you use a little bit, it's where the details of the domain mentioned for the product.
Yes, since your server is somewhere on the internet, maybe it's running on a good operating system. They ask you to choose the operating system of that server. So you choose the operating system. Of course, for servers, we all go with Linux, and most of them are Ubuntu servers. So you take your server, they give you credentials that you can access that server with. The downside is you have now to build your Linux skills because servers don't have UIs. Okay. All you get is a terminal and run your command. So you can log into GitHub from that terminal of that server and clone a repository there, and maybe even write a workflow that you host on GitHub that will automatically clone that code of yours every time you push. But they give you credentials that you can. So, for example, it's usually something like SSH root at the IP address of, they give you an IP address for that server of yours. So so they give you a username, an IP address, which is now then you have a username, and the username is the one username, server IP address, and then a password. So when you hit enter, if this was a real server, it would have asked you for a password. I believe I did have find that I am simply forgetting the password or the IP address. But essentially, that's how you do it. And you get yourself into a terminal environment where you can do anything now. You can deploy any app. So maybe what we can do is finally talk about so you guys also had the link for Docker, right? Yeah. So when we come to learn how to deploy a Docker application to a real server, we are going to actually see that. So what happens? What we'll do is in the course of the week, I'll share the steps. You create free accounts on AWS. Those who have free account, if you don't have, you create free account and then I'll come and show you how you can SSH into your server, right? I can't remember the IP address. Oh yeah. So this SSH into your server. If I server operation, which I don't know, you find yourself. This is an Ubuntu server, so you find yourself in an terminal. So on how to deploy, I think it's the wrong one. So on how to deploy something on that server, now that is a lesson for another day. Because now this one is not as easy as Vercel. Now this one you have to get hands-on with Linux commands. Okay. Yes. So at that point, I think AWS has free accounts that are very generous. I think they run for 6 months. You can use a lot of features on AWS for 6 months. So yes, yeah, Docker is just a containerization platform. It helps you to you put it in a container. Then it also helps in deployment because now when you go to SSH into such a server, you just need to import or clone your code, which has the docker.compose YAML file, and then you docker compose run or start up the container and you're good to go. Now, Kubernetes work hand in hand with, it's also a containerization architecture that now is more conversant with microservices. So you can even have clusters. Clusters is a collection of containers that are interconnected. So what happens? I think we when we start looking at that, I will show you um, how how to choose between the containerization platform that would suit your whatever you are working on. So even Docker itself can have a container with multiple like not containers. You can have a Docker build that has multiple containers. One is running uh, either your MySQL or Postgres. The other one is running Laravel, and maybe another one is running something like Redis for cache. And So like this one has two Laravel applications. That one, the admin app is also a Laravel application. Then we have a backend that is written in Golang. Golang is a backend software. Then we have a Postgres database container there, and we have a Redis container, and we also have we are running a tunnel for Cloudflare that helps with distribution of the front-end assets, the JavaScripts, the CSSs, and all that. So Kubernetes is the same. They help you create containers and clusters and all this. I'll share with you a document I had prepared. That is for the coming week. It will be shared with you guys on it's explaining Kubernetes, Docker, and all those other tools that you might encounter. Correct? So, the one advantage of using Docker is because it makes whatever you are working on local environment, you go on the server. There's a common phrase with software engineers. A client will call you, they tell you the system is not working, and the first answer you tell them it is working on my machine. Yeah, and true, it is working on your laptop, but not working on the server because they are two different environments. So Docker makes it one environment. So what you had working on your local machine, those Docker containers are the same containers that you take to the server. So if it works on your machine, it is working on the server. And trust me that it's working on my machine issue is it's a real issue because the client will tell you this thing is not working. When you look at it, it's working. So you are stuck on where do I start from to fix this thing because I can't see the problem. Sometimes now you have going to maybe any test into your client's machine to investigate, or you even have to now visit the physical to investigate the issue. So Docker erases that problem. So as for Kubernetes, you have you use them together with Docker. So I think I believe is together with Docker. Yeah, Docker is the container machine. So Kubernetes are actually their work is actually to manage port services. Which server, which container gets which port, which container gets which server. Yes, that's what Kubernetes do. Yeah. They are for very huge, heavyweight applications. You would not be able to probably use Kubernetes on a small application. Yeah, but on a huge application that has multiple servers communicating with each other, like this project has two Laravel applications and one Golang application, and there's a database container. And there's also a Redis server on it. So those are quite a number of containers. And again, it the advantages of Docker. Now, you don't have to install Postgres on your laptop. You don't have to configure so much or bloat your laptop with so much software because the container downloads everything it needs to run. Yeah. Can you use? Can use Docker on a small project. Have your Postgres container. It gets rid of the problem you are talking about. You have to uninstall it. Use like that. Yes. Docker will containerize or everything it is using on. You can have multiple containers. Each container with its applications. Yes. Anything else? So I believe we'll take a break. We'll take a break, and then after this, we don't have much to do. I don't know if you are organized in groups. So after this, you have to settle in those groups. Um, then decide on something you want to work on as a group because we need to get hands-on practice on teamwork on a Git repository. So the whole group will be working on one repository. So one person will create the repo and invite the other people as contributors. Okay, you will share tasks and everybody will push with whatever naming of branches. If you decide to everybody to call, I believe for for better follow-up, everyone will be naming the branch starting with the name, like James and something to say what you are working on. Maybe James about page, Simon homepage. So you get hands-on and working on the same report as a group, how to deal with merge conflicts, those are given to rise, and how to do those merge pull requests and reviews of that. So we'll have to demo everything. If how to leave a comment for someone to fix something if you found an issue with their request to merge, how they are going to fix it and push and all the way to deploying to either Vercel or Netlify. So the group will discuss and decide whether you want to use Vercel. Has anyone tried Netlify? How many you want to move Vercel? You can also try. You have tried. Yeah. Yeah. I use both actually. So I think we are due for a break. Then we come back as groups and so moving on, you either have a lot on that group project because it will give you experience of working and you have track performance. You have to see with not making commit, commit and so on. How to deal with those mind issues, how to review each other's codes and all that. Because you barely find yourself working in a company as a code developer unless it's your personal project or your company. But for most companies, you'll be hired as a group of 2, 3, 4, up to 20 people on the same project, depending on how big it is. So you have to get the hands-on experience of working on projects as a team, because I believe everybody likes uh, includes that excellent team player lying in their CV, but literally they have never worked in a team. Yeah. So yes. So one question, would you like to be assigned a project, or do you want as a group to discuss on the project you want to work on? Eh? Assigned. Kwa nini hamtaki ku you should start thinking like innovators. Eh. Oh, I need to say that. Okay. So how many groups are there? Um, Another question. Should you be assigned all the groups the same project or different? Na sasa mtafanya ballot kama mtafanya aje? Sasa bali au mtoa project. Okay. All right. So you can do that. So what I will leave you to do before we come back after the debate, then decide who is going to be the team leader, because that is the person who will be answerable for all mistakes and that group. So in a real world company where you are working as a software developer, if a junior developer makes a mistake, person who answers is the team leader, and then the team leader now decides on how to deal with the developer. So you can decide if you want to be a permanent team leader in the group, and you want to shuffle. Maybe after 1 week, another person. 1 week is too short to get the new hang of it. Of trying to call someone and then you have not pushed your code and they are not picking your phone. And then the product manager is waiting for you for a meeting in the afternoon to present the progress, but your developers are not picking phones and they have not written the code. You should experience that pressure in real life, because sometimes you are walking up the stairs wondering why you decided to become a software engineer. No, no, no. It's the company paying them, but you are in charge. You know, like you go into the armed forces. It's the government that pays the police, but if a police officer misbehaves, the OCS will be questioned. Hmm? You told your officer, and why are you not picking them? But he's not the one paying them. And to some extent, he might be fired because of his juniors misbehaving. So upate wewe ulikuwa team leader, umeenda nyumbani, and you have left the other developers there, the ones who made your code, your project. So it is about it's a people being on how to relate with people and how to deal with different attitudes. And all right, is that okay? All right. Oh, one more question. So I believe maybe there are people. Are you all in the same stage? Yeah. So how do we deal with those who are very new to software engineering and those who are way deep into their classes? believe you need to balance group. Inafaa kuwe na those who are experienced and the ones who are new. So you will not be so hard on the new ones, but it's up to you now to kind of guide them. So yes. Is everyone conversant with React JS? So for this one, I believe for 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 me to be able to attain those projects, I need to understand which language is conversant with. Those who want to work with React or Next.js, there are people who might want to work with PHP. I don't know. HTML. Says they have an advantage because they learn way ahead of their time. But now, are we okay with React? Yes. The whole everyone. Kuna mtu yuko sawa na anaweza taka a different. Hata kama ni Vue.js, free React is not your cup of tea. Right. So I believe we are all okay with React.js. So we are okay with React.js. I will push it a lot further because you will have to work with Next.js. And I will give you an alternative you can choose to work with that is called I will remember the name. So you choose to either work with React.js or that other. Not Angular. It is a React framework also, but just it's not Next.js. But, Angular is it's quite a stiff learning curve. It's not as easy to learn Angular as it is to learn React.js. Have you tried Angular? You can try it. So you are free to decide. I will just give the context for those projects. You are free to use React or Vue.js. You are free to use GitHub or GitLab. You are free to use Vercel or Netlify. So yes. Oh, it's called Remix. There's a framework for React called Remix. You can explore that.